Restoration to the Second Powers podcast, where we're living life with no walls. Today, you will be hearing the teachings of our spiritual guide, Regina L. Stillman. If you'd like to learn more about the fellowship, check out our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/restoration2. Also, if you'd like to make a donation, go to givelify.com and look for us at Restoration 2 or Cash App us at $R2Power. Now, everybody, throw your twos up and let's get lifted. Ho!
Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. I had to kind of check and see what was going on there. I want to welcome you to today's edition of this is R2 squared. Restoration to the Second Power, our Soulful Sunday. And my apologies, I'm just getting oriented here. I just walked back in the door, but I wanted to make sure and get here to be with you on this fine day to share what the Spirit is saying to the church. I want to welcome you to today's podcast. I am your spiritual thought leader, Regina L. Stillman, and I'm so glad that you joined me on today. This is the day that the Lord has made, and I'm rejoicing in it, and I am absolutely positively glad in it. Bringing you greetings once more and again from the great state of Texas here in Dallas, and I've been blessed to spend this morning with my nephew, Timothy. It's been a marvelous day. We just got off the highway from church this morning, and I walked right in the door and put my headphones in, and here we are. So God bless you. I love you, and I appreciate you. I appreciate my moderator for having everything ready for me on today. Now, as we get ready to move forward, I want to share with you a brief thought on today, and I may not take the whole entire time, but I do want to give you, you'll hear me of late talking about Spirit speaking. And my goal is for Spirit to speak to the church and say what the Spirit is saying to the church. Now, on today, I want to come from the thought, caught in the very act, caught in the very act. And I'm going to get right into the word on today. I am, as I woke this morning, of the mindset that we're still dealing with the whole concept of corrupted psychology. Corrupted psychology. I want you to come back into another place of how you think about your relationship with God and move away from the corrupted psychology that was the result of Adam and Eve's sin in the garden. I'm going to read today, again, our thought, caught in the very act. And if I were going to take a subtext on today, that subtext would be drop it like it's hot, drop it like it's hot. So I want to come, if you would, from the book of John, the 8th chapter, and I'm going to read verses 3 through 11. And it says, when the scribes and Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery, they made her stand in the midst of the court and put the case before him being Jesus. Teacher, they said, this woman has been caught in the very act of adultery. Now, Moses in the law commanded us that such women, offenders, should be stoned to death. But what do you say to do with her? What is your sentence? And he said, this they said, trying to test him, hoping that they might find a charge on which to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down and wrote on the ground with his finger. However, when they persisted with their question, he raised himself up and said, let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her. Then he bent down and went on writing on the ground with his finger. They listened to him, and then they began going out, conscience stricken, one by one, from the oldest down to the last one of them, till Jesus was left alone. with the woman standing there before him in the center of the court. When Jesus raised himself up, he said to her, "Woman, where are your accusers? Has no man condemned you?" Verse 11, she answered, "No one, Lord." And Jesus said, "I do not condemn you either. Go your way and sin no more." Now, that's our text for today. Again, my thought, caught in the very act. And one of the things that, as we talk about corrupted psychology, and I've touched on this a few times, I believe, as we've been doing this teaching, that we might come into the understanding that from the very beginning and what we call the original sin in the garden, we see Jesus's approach. We see God's approach, both of them. We have the Old Testament and the New Testament. In the Old Testament, when Adam and Eve sinned in the garden, God did not change his approach toward them. As a matter of fact, what we've been trying to get you to embrace and understand is that what happened was a corrupted psychology, but there was no cause and effect where God is concerned, because love does not change. Love that we get from God, I'm talking about agape, that love is without any kind of restrictions. As we say, it's unconditional. There are no conditions. And I want to continue to contend for the faith that the minute you put conditions on it, you just made it conditional. So I want us to really be clear on that point, that there was no cause and effect. The cause that we identified, the idea that love somehow had held out on us and had not given us our full of what we could have experienced in life to the fullest, i.e., that fruit that they were spoken of not to eat. At the end of the day, that was the cause of sin. But when we looked at the effect, what was the outcome? How did it impact? It had no impact, because God still came looking to have communion with them in the garden. God still was in that place of talking with them even after they had sinned. Now, mind you, God already was completely aware of what had happened, but there was no behavioral change. There was no effect. There was nothing that we can see and attribute to what we now have gone into our teaching and our concepts, that God can't look on sin. He walks away from it. He puts you away after you've sinned, all of that. That's what we saw in the Old Testament, God in relationship to cause and effect to man's sin. Then let's bring it over to the New Testament here with Jesus, the Son of God, and really God incarnate. We see him encountering this woman that was taken again in the 8th chapter of the book of John. This woman is taken, and that's what I said, caught in the very act. And I'm highlighting that point. She was caught in the very act. Now, I don't think I need to make it much plainer as to if she was taken in the act of adultery. You go ahead and read between the lines how they caught her and what they caught her doing. In the very act. So this was not something that was an allegation that was surmised and supposed. It wasn't fake news. It was not a changed narrative. They caught this woman in the very act. Now, interesting, even as the text identifies, as I was reading it, even as the text identifies, it's interesting that they talked about the law as it related to women that were caught in that predicament. Already showing some levels of, we talked about how patriarchy and other things that came into existence caused the system that they created to be skewed. If she was caught in the very act, she had to be caught in the very act with someone. Where was the someone? Now, I was reading today, the version that I used was the Amplified Bible, and the Amplified Bible makes a special stipulation to the fact of it being a woman, and that this was the charge and the law against the female, but that same law did not hold true for the male. And again, that's strictly because of the patriarchal system that was in place. So when we get to the point of looking at this woman that was caught in the very act, what we see Jesus still teaching and trying, I'm going to say, to reprogram the minds of the people away from that same concept that sin causes there to be a separation and a break and a judgment imposed and all of this, as far as sentence and people wanting justice, as they called it. Well, it obviously was not justice if she was caught in the very act, but the man was not there with her. There obviously was a problem there. Please excuse my phone. I'm sorry. Let me try to get those notifications out of there. So you're going to see my finger. I know you guys are going to be laughing, but I'm so sorry. So at the end of the day, when we start looking at the idea of her being caught in the very act, I want to emphasize, if we really look at it, whether it's God in the story of original sin in the Garden of Eden, or if it is this woman that was taken in the very act. When we talk about caught in the very act, I want you to understand that God is omniscient, that the Spirit of God knows everything. So there is never anything that we do. There's another scripture that says, behold, the eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. I want you to understand, when you start moving in the realm of understanding, God sees everything that you do. So anything that you operate in, even though you think, we used to sing an old song, come out of that corner, can't hide. God told me to tell you, you can't hide. Then they'd say the light shining bright and you can't hide. God told me to tell you, you can't hide. I want you to understand, this is a time where I want you to come back in your relationship with God to transparency and understanding that whatever act you are engaged in, you're already caught before you get started. If you're going to come from that kind of mindset, you're already caught the moment that you do it, because the eyes of the Lord are in every place, and you've been caught. In the sin in the garden, God saw them. God knew where they had hidden themselves. God knew and saw them when they sewed the fig leaves together. And God knew that the fig leaves were going to dry up and they'd be once more and again exposed. God saw all of that. So I want you to understand, when I'm talking about being caught in the very act, I want you to understand, whatever we do, you're caught right there when it comes to God, because he is omniscient. And so let's not play games with ourselves nor play games with God. Now, as I'm talking on today, this is not for you to have a sense of anxiety and worry that, oops, God saw me and I'm a criminal. I want us to come back to the understanding, had Adam and Eve chosen a different approach, even in the garden, because again, God still came to the garden as was his custom. He still came to the garden to talk to them. He still talked with them even after they had sinned. And what had really taken place was corrupted psychology. Man was ashamed. Mankind, and again, I'm not talking about gender, I'm talking about humanity, Hadam. They felt ashamed because they knew they had sinned, and they fell in their minds. Their countenance had fallen within themselves. Their soulish realm had gone into a place of being exiled from the children of God. They were already exiled before God ever put a cherubim at the end of the garden with the flaming sword turning in every direction. They had already exiled themselves. They exiled themselves the minute they knew shame. They exiled themselves the minute that they hid themselves. They exiled themselves the minute they sewed together fig leaves, and they were caught right then. Even though the voice of the Lord came to visit them later on. I'm stressing this point because I want in 2021 and beyond for the people of God to stop playing these games that we play in the church. How many times do we see where we know people are doing all kinds of damnable things in and out of the church and thinking that they're hiding and they're getting away? And I'm saying you're deceiving yourselves. Now, my emphasis is not the wrongdoing that you're doing. My emphasis is your psychology, the corrupted psychology that somehow or another you're not already caught in the very act. Beloved, you are. Now, that very act does not have to only be negative. I want you to identify that when you do the positive, and this is a place I want us to get to, when you commit the positive, you're also caught in the very act, and there's something very strong and very positive that's going on with that. I want you to stop continuously looking to the negative first. I want you to start redeveloping yourself, first and foremost, in transparent relationship with God. The Spirit spoke to me, and I was sharing with somebody earlier this morning. The Spirit spoke to me and said, the move in this hour is going to be moved in those that understand relationship, not law and order, not judgment and condemnation, not good works versus bad works, not all of those places that we tend to go. Some of you, when you saw caught in the very act, your mind automatically would have gone to something negative. Oh my God, I've been caught doing something bad. Listen, I want you to start developing a mindset and a mentality that goes to the affirmative and the positive first. The Spirit of the Lord told me when I was called to minister and go into the ministry, the Spirit of the Lord said to me then, I want you to preach a positive gospel for positive results. So in so doing, the people can begin to hear a positive word that empowers them and not a negative word that condemns them and tears them down. So as I deal with this idea of this woman being caught in the very act, I also want to marry with that the reality of how Jesus dealt with her, even when he caught her in the very act of missing the mark, which is all sin is. Sin is a term of archery that means to miss the mark. Even when you've missed the mark and you've been caught in the very act, I want you to look at Jesus's response. When the men and the accusers, and the Bible says Satan, or the spirit of the adversary, is an accuser of the brethren, and there's that constant condemnation that's trying to make you feel bad and make you feel negative. I'm gonna go back and say, I believe if Adam and Eve had just talked to God and come clean in the garden, all of this that we got going on now would be non-existent. But they sent themselves into exile with a corrupted psychology. I'm trying to deliver you from the exile. Some of you have a relationship with God right now, but you're already in exile from this corrupted psychology. We see Jesus do something very powerful. The condemnation that these men wanted to subject this woman to, Jesus deals with it very cunningly and very wisely. But there's a bigger message that he wants us to see here. He looks at them as they stand there prepped and ready to stone this woman to the death. And what was their allegation and their charge? She was caught in the very act. Jesus deals with that whole scenario. And what does he do? He challenges them and he says, okay, she was caught in the very act. Now, this is what I want you to think about. The person that's without sin standing here among you, I want you to cast the first stone. And so in my mind's eye, and y'all know I have a great imagination, somebody realized, hey, I'm a liar. And so what was the Spirit saying to the church? Drop it like it's hot. That stone that's in your hand, that you think is going to allow you to see somebody else's judgment and somebody else's death and someone else's demise, I need you to drop it like it's hot. Because at the end of the day, who are you to judge another man's servant? Then for the backbiter that was in the midst, the Spirit of the Lord said, are you without sin? And if you are, cast the first stone. And the Spirit had to truthfully say, drop it like it's hot. Because at the end of the day, I know the spirit that's in me and the place from which I come. For the adulterer, for the fornicator, for the thief, for all of the fill in the blank sins that you want to put in there. And we could go on and on and on. The Spirit of the Lord speaks very expressly to the church. Drop it like it's hot. Because even though that person was caught in the very act, the reality of it is you have an advocate with the Father. And while man looks on the outward appearance, the Lord knows the heart. And this is what I really feel when I talk about coming into a season and a time now that the ministries and even the corporations that are going to thrive in this hour from 2021 forward, what is going to define success? Those that learn how to come in and understand it's about relationship. It is about relationship. It's not about rules. And I say this all the time. I've said it for years. Rules without relationship leads to rebellion. It's not about the rules. It's not about the regulations. It's not about all of the other trappings that we want to put on and call it religion, and all of the other theology we want to grab and put people in a stronghold and put them in a chokehold so that they can't breathe. At the end of the day, the Spirit of the Lord continues to say to the church, drop it like it's hot. Because I saw a meme the other week and it blessed me, and I think I reposted it, but I want to bring it in right here. It said, the one person that could have stoned the woman caught in the very act of adultery, the one person that could have thrown a stone didn't. That speaks volumes, because again, Jesus was the only one standing there, the only human standing there that could have cast a stone. But look at what he did. He didn't. That is the reality of being caught in the very act, that the spirit of the agape, the spirit of unconditional love, the spirit that is about being relational. Again, I'm not getting caught up in a concept, and I'm not getting caught up in the wiles of spiritual thought leader. You're telling people to just go out here and commit sin and do whatever they want to do. I am teaching relationship based and predicated on love and love alone. I'm not talking about rules. I'm not talking about doctrines. I'm not talking about denominations. I'm not talking about all of those things that have held the people into this place where his love has it covered, Nathan Lamont. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not talking about all the places that people want to go with that. And listen, it is the love that covers us. It is the love that cleanses us. It is the love that protects us from having to go into guilt and condemnation. Romans 8:1. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Christ Jesus, who walk not after the flesh, but we're walking after the Spirit. And what am I learning after the Spirit? That God's love for me is unconditional. And when I have relationship, stop having religion and stop having salvation that's based on rules and regulations of denominational and doctrinal teachings. I want you to have legitimized relationship with God. When you have relationship with God, the thing that you understand, even in caught in the very act, is that his love has already provided for me unconditional love, that I am already free. You shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free. As you come into that place, stand fast, therefore, in the liberty wherewith Christ has made you free. Don't be entangled again with the yoke of bondage. Not only the act is not the issue. I want you to get to the cause. What was the root cause that you chose to not follow the relationship and offend in the relationship? What was it that caused? And get to that root, because baby, beloved, that's inside yourself. That doesn't have anything to do with your external. It's not because somebody made me do this. It's not because that or the other. Something internal caused you to feel that love had somehow cheated you, or love had not brought to you, or love had reneged on you, that caused whatever the choice was that made you select, miss the mark. Oh yeah, it wasn't an accident, miss the mark. And you were caught in the very act. The only thing that you need to understand, get to the core, get to the root, deal with that thing. If it's negative, understand that the one that could, and the only one that could throw a stone at you, is not going to do it. He's not going to do it. It wasn't just a parable. This was an actual event. And why was this event recorded in scripture? To let you know that the very Son of God, who thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but to become fashioned in the form of flesh and come down into the world so that we could see a manifestation of who we really are as sons and daughters of God. When he took on that form and he came and had the perfect opportunity to cast a stone, he did not. Caught in the very act should evoke in us the very understanding that the one that could have cast a stone never did, and he never will. I need you to get that down in your shando, because we teach you and we indoctrinate you and we tie you to a dogma and to an ideology and to a theology that teaches almost the exact opposite of that. God's waiting on you to miss the mark so he can bop you upside the head with that stone, get you right smack dab in the middle of your forehead like Goliath, and just take you on out. No, that is not the God we serve. That is not the agape. That is not the unconditional love of God. He will not cast a stone. And this is the thing that you got to understand, beloved. If you're trying to stand over your brother and your sister and you got a stone in your hand, I'm going to say it once more and again, drop it like it's hot. If you got a stone and you're looking at yourself and you're looking at the man in the mirror and you want to take yourself out and stone yourself to death, because I guarantee you, some of you are actually killing yourselves. You don't need any help from the outside. You're doing a good enough job of beating yourself down. You're doing a good enough job of pelting yourself with the stones and just stoning yourself. You don't need any outside forces because you do a good enough job for yourself, because you don't understand the reality of being caught in the very act. When we talk about cause and effect, it has no effect on the agape and the love of God. He still loves you 100%, just like he loved you before you missed the mark. And all he's asking you to do is say, okay, whether it's a situation where whatever you thought I was holding out on you that made you feel like I'm going to go ahead and do this anyway, knowing that if I'm love and I'm all love, I'm full love, I'm nothing but love. If I restrain or withhold something from you, it's not to hurt you. If I tell you to go left, there's a reason why I'm telling you to go left. If I tell you to go right, there's a reason why I'm telling you to go right. Now, I need you to go inside yourself and figure out, when I told you to go right, what it was that provoked you to go left. Something inside of you. And maybe you're one of those that's walking around, you're not the boss of me. You're not going to tell me what to do. Maybe that's your position spiritually. But when you understand, you can submit to that loves you. And I contend that's the only thing you can submit to, is that loves you 100% unconditionally. If you really know that God loves you 100% unconditionally, why would you not submit? Why would there be a fight? Why would there be a struggle? Because God is always looking out for my best interest. Because you know what? I'm the apple of God's eye. Yes, I'm talking about spiritual thought leader. I'm the apple of God's eye, and you are too. So this is where I want you to get this level of understanding. I'm the apple of God's eye. I'm not at war. I'm not an enemy. I am a friend of God. As a matter of fact, I'm married to God. This is my beloved, and my beloved is mine. And as long as God is hooked up and I'm hooked up to him, God is hooked up to me, and he's looking to give me all things. It's his good pleasure to give me the kingdom. What am I going to fight and struggle and war against about that? Baby, whatever you ask, you got it. And this is the beauty of it. He said, and if your ways please me, you can have the desires of your heart, where God is basically saying back to me, baby, whatever you want, you have it. If you can understand it's about relationship, I'm telling you, from 2021 and beyond, those that thrive and those that become extremely successful in God, it's going to be because you understand relationship. Not rules, not regulations. Relationship is the key. Relationship is the gold. Relationship is that you need to understand. If you seek for anything at all, that's what you want to receive. That's what you want to apprehend. Listen, Paul said, I count not myself to have apprehended, but this one thing I do, reaching forth unto the things that are before. I press towards the prize, and that mark of the prize, relationship with with God. It's not even a bigger church. It's not a ministry that's thriving. It's not money in the bank. It's not a bigger house. It's not a better car. What am I reaching for the prize? That prize is I have friendship and relationship, fellowship divine. I have all blessed and sweet communion. Why? Jesus is a friend of mine. God is a friend of mine. God, he's not just my husband, but he's my friend. It's a beautiful thing when your mate is also your best friend. Baby, then you got something. You understand what I'm saying? That's a relationship that can withstand any test of time, and it's always going to come out on top because we're friends first. Oh, yes, he's my husband, but he's a friend of mine. We had a song we used to play in the Foster Memorial Vibrations. Do you know my Jesus? He's a friend of mine. And I want you to come to that place, beloved, where you recognize and identify in relationship with God. God is a friend of mine. We're not enemies. So guess what? Then I can sing that hymn, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own. Why do we do all of that? The joy that we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known, because y'all don't know the relationship that I got with him. He calls me friend. I got a relationship, and it's our unique, special relationship. You don't know him like I know him, and I don't know him like you know him, because our relationships are unique to him. Our relationships are one of a kind. You can't imitate the love that I got with him, baby, because listen, the way that I love on him and the way he loves on me, it is uniquely mine. And that's where I don't have to come, and I don't have to be upset with all of the anguish of, oh God, if I missed the mark. Listen, if I missed the mark, he knows it wasn't by on purpose, as far as me sitting down and determining, oh, I just don't want it. Baby, if I'm missing the mark, it's only because I haven't come into the growth and development and awareness of where the mark is. And that's okay. Then I got target practice. Y'all ain't gonna buy what I'm selling. Because sometimes, isn't that how a marksman increases their ability to hit the bullseye? It's from shooting and trying to get as close to the mark as you can until you master it. And mastery is a place of growth, beloved. Mastery is a place of coming into, I've practiced it long enough. And I said this the other week, when we start talking about in this hour, lights, camera, action, you've had rehearsals, those things in your life where you said, oh, I was caught in the very act, and you've been condemning yourself and stoning yourself and beating yourself down till you're pretty near dead. I want you to understand, baby, it was a rehearsal. It was a rehearsal, and you had that opportunity to get on stage without the lights being on. You had the opportunity to get on stage. You may have been in full costume. You know, you'll go through where you first rehearse your lines, and then when you get a little more advanced and you get closer to time for the event, you start putting your costumes on and you do it in full regalia until eventually you walk out on that stage. They turn on all the lights. They draw the curtain back, and there you stand, lights, camera, action. I want you to understand this process of growth and relationship with God. You don't see, when we go back to the idea of growth, that embryo, first and foremost, the zygote, then we get the embryonic state, then we continue until we have the fetus and it grows, and it finally is at a level where it can be birthed and live on its own without being connected to the umbilical. And then eventually we get to the point where we can crawl, then we can walk, then we can run, then we can ride a bicycle, then we can drive a car. And the next thing you know, I'm free to fly and do whatever I want to do. I want you to understand growth and process. You don't just wake up one day from a caterpillar and the next day you are a butterfly. There is a process. There is a transformation. There is a metamorphosis. And so I want to bring you into this place of spiritual metamorphosis, where when you see caught in the very act, you don't have where your liver quivers and you get nervous and anxious because, oh my God, I missed the mark. And again, I'm going to say, stop taking those places of past missed marks as an opportunity to stone yourself and take your own self out. I want you to see those opportunities. I was in rehearsal, but now I've grown. Now I've matured. Now I've developed to the point that I understand he that could cast a stone never will. I want you to say that to yourself. The only one that could ever cast a stone at me never will. He never will throw a stone. I need you to get that down in your shondo. Because listen, the church wants to cast a stone. The religious people want to cast a stone. Everybody in the external wants to cast a stone. But I'm going to say it once more and again. Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot. Because at the end of the day, nobody else has the ability to judge another man's servant. So when we come into the element, there is that agape, there is that unconditional that pushes you and encourages you and really compels you to come into the relationship. Not all of this other mess. Push that, drop it like it's hot, drop that stuff like it's hot. Not all of the other stuff that has been put in your spirit, in your mind, in your thoughts, in your emotions, in that corrupted psychology. I need you to get rid of that mess. Flush it once and for all. Come into the place of understanding. God has unconditional love for you. That love does call you to come into a closeness, into a union, into a unity, into a oneness, into a relationship. If you will be powerful in this hour, if you want to do all that God has assigned your hands to do and have life and life more abundantly and thrive and be flourishing in your life, in your lifestyle, in your career, in your success, in all things that pertain to you. If you would be successful in this hour, I'm not going to give you 7 steps of prayer. I'm not going to give you 40 days of fasting like Daniel fasted. I'm not going to give you all of that other of the calisthenics that we've put on to get spiritual and grow. I'm going to tell you, get relationship with God. That is your answer, beloved. Get relationship with God. I guarantee you, when you connect to God, one of the first things you're going to do is realize those stones in your hand are too hot to hold. I don't have time to judge. I don't have time to criticize. I don't have time to critique. I don't have to have time to talk about any other man's servant. I don't have a stone to throw at anybody because my house is glass. And when I say that, I'm not talking about I'm living shabby. I'm not talking about I'm living crazy and wild. I'm talking about I'm living in relationship with God. And if it had not been for the Lord that was on my side, I know where I would be, in the crazy house or in the grave. So at the end of the day, again, I don't live there anymore. As far as there were times when I used to say, I know my feet touched down on insanity. I know they did. I know they did. I was just pure D, straight up crazy. But thanks be to God that my corrupted psychology got uncorrupted. The corruptible will put on incorruption. Y'all ain't ready for me today. The corruptible will put on incorruption. And y'all want to make that all about changing a physical body. Who cares about a body? My spirit doesn't need a body. But when I am talking about this corruption shall have put on incorruption, and then will be the death. Where is your sting? Grave was, where is your victory? Listen, I have that everlasting life right now. I have that eternal life right now. And my corruptible has put on incorruption. My corrupted psychology has put on incorruption. And now there is no sting of death. There is no sting of death in my life. There's no reason for me to continue to live in dead places. There's no reason for me to continue to expect the shoe to drop and another bad thing to happen and another bad thing to happen and another. I'm not going around looking out for bad things to happen in my life anymore. Why? Because I'm no longer under the penalty and the sting of sin. Because the one person that could have thrown a stone never did, and he never will, even when I'm caught in the very act. That's why I want you to understand what I'm saying to you. The eyes of the Lord are in every place. That's not a place of being fearful. Matter of fact, I'm glad that wherever I am, even in my worst state, he sees me. The eyes of the Lord are in every place. It sees me when I'm good. It sees me when I'm evil. EVIL is LIVE backwards. EVIL is LIVE backwards. Evil, even when I'm living backwards. Even when I'm living outside of the life and life more abundantly that God has provided to me freely and wants me to have it and taste of it daily. Even there, the eyes of the Lord are there to guide me back to my center. If I'm off too far to the right, if I'm off too far to the left, it's right there, the eyes of the Lord to guide me back to my center, not to be fearful and scared because I got caught in the very act. Because I'm going to say it once more and again. The only one that could have cast a stone did not, and he never will. I hope this word has blessed you on today. I hope that you can get it down in your shando, because, beloved, I need you to move away from the corrupted psychology of sin consciousness that keeps you from being all that God made you to be, sons and daughters of God, as you mature and eventually to come into that place as his bride, as his beloved, as the apple of his eye, as the bride that for the joy that was set before him. He saw you. He saw me. The joy that was set before him. He saw a bride without spot, wrinkle, or blemish. Can you imagine on the wedding day and you come in and here come the bride, she's snaggled to, hair all over her head, toe up from the floor up, dress is raggedy, wrinkled, dirty. No, he saw a bride that was set before him without spot, blemish, wrinkle, or any such thing. So, spiritual thought leader, are you saying we're perfect? Hear what I said. Perfect for the match. Perfect for the match. You understand what I'm saying? He looked at me and he said, girl, you sure look good. My praise looks good, because praise is comely for the upright. My praise sure looks good on you. And I praise him every opportunity that I get. And guess what? He praises me back. He tells me how much the apple of his eye I am. And I tell you what, it makes me feel good, Brother Nathan Lamont. It makes me feel good. Oh, I feel so good. Because it's a two-way street. That's what relationship is. It's two ways. It's not one-sided. And that's what I want you to come into in this hour. I need you to understand the love of God, the real love of God is not about rules and regulations, but the real love of God is about relationship. And that's how we win. That's how we make it. That's who you are. That's what you got. Now live it to the fullest and understand you ain't got to be worried about being caught in the very act, because even caught in the very act, his eyes are guiding you right back to center point. And he will never throw a stone. I love you with the love of God. I hope this word has blessed you on today. And I'm going to get out of here a little early today, but I hope what I said, the richness of it, get deep down in your spirit, because I said something to you today. Caught in the very act should not affect you, beloved, because there's a comfort, there's a peace, there's a joy in knowing that he, the only one that could ever cast a stone, never will. I love you. I see you, BTD mom. I love everybody that's out there. I appreciate you all for coming in. I hope that this has blessed you. Please get it down in your shando, and I'll see you next time. Peace for your journey.